May now invite, last but not the least, of our speakers for today's panel, Prayukt Kivi. He's the head of marketing for Sectrio, a growth marketer with focus on revenue. He's highly specialized in handling brands that are embracing digital transformation. He's all about marketing, brand leadership, and revenue. Prayukt, over to you.
Am I audible? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be back again here. Thank you, Jose or Jose. I didn't know you were known as Jose as well. So things have changed since we met last time. But great to see the audience here. Thanks for coming here and listening to all of us. Fantastic sessions. Enjoyed each one of them. It is truly humbling to even stand here in front of all these achievers and the kind of work that all of you are doing. Bosch, Cisco, and you took us through some really interesting innovations there. So I'm going to speak a bit about something that has not been touched up so far, which is about how do we bring cyber resilience and through cyber security basically. Don't get confused. We are Subix Secure. We were Subix Secure about a year and a half back. Now we have become Sectrio. So we are still part of Subix. But Subix decided to rebrand us because this is a growth area for Subix, and we felt that there's a lot more to be done there. And that's a bit about what we do. We are a cybersecurity company. We secure IT, OT, and IoT as well, operational technologies, Internet of Things, and what have you, covering 9 industries. And that's the number of attacks that we monitor every single day as of today, right? We are present, or rather our honeypot or our threat intelligence gathering facilities present in 72 cities, and we have over 100,000 sort of malwares that have been signaturized as of today. So Jose always tells me, tell us something that we haven't heard anywhere else, right? So I'm going to do that. Then this is an interesting episode that happened last month. I don't know how many of you guys were clued into this. So how many of you watched the India-Pakistan match in Dubai last month? Unfortunately, right? Yeah. Really unfortunate. It was unfortunate for another reason as well, which I'm going to touch upon right now. While the match was going on, there was something very interesting going on in cyberspace that we were watching, which kept us awake. So that was October 24th, that was the exact date. These are the 2 captains, an interesting game again. So 23rd, which was a day before, which was, if I remember, a Saturday, and we were sort of looking at our honeypots on a weekend because we usually don't have anything better to do. We saw that the volume of inbound cyber attacks on India sort of dipped significantly, and that this is not like a usual dip that happens when your hackers or your bots sort of take a break. This was a very significant sort of dip. You can see that over there, 23rd October. That's the day when it really came down, right? So, well, we got our antennae up. We were like, what really is going on here? I mean, we should watch this further. We didn't correlate this with anything else that was happening in the real world. So we need to be pardoned for that. But then again, this was the lull before the storm. So what happened after this, right? The match started, and so did the cyber attacks, from 7 locations globally. That's where we were attacked from. Now, this was the first instance of a major sub-geopolitical diffused cyber attack, that India experienced, right? Let me break that down for you. So usually what used to happen was that for cyberspace to be triggered, or rather a lot of cyber attacks to come into any country, there has to be a reason behind it, right? Now you go to Ukraine today, you will see some cyber attacks happening because of some geopolitical tensions that they're having with their neighbors. You go to US again, there are certain cyber attacks happening there. Israel, Iran, UAE for that matter as well. You have certain geopolitical sort of triggers that usually led to these countries getting cyber attacked. But this is the first time that we saw a sporting event being used as a pretext to really launch cyber attacks. And those gray bubbles that you see there were all the IP addresses or the geographical clusters from where we were getting attacked. And there you go. It peaked to that number, and then we the very next day, in fact, I think by 9:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time, on 24th October, we saw the attacks actually coming down. This was when India had literally started sort of, surrendering the match, so to say. So a lot of lessons here for all of us. This was an episode of coordinated cyber attacks. We call them cyber quakes now, which is basically that, any event, anything that is, sort of triggering a collected, diffused cyber attack on any country. That's what we really call them. And see, what we need to learn here is that, like, for all the innovation that we are doing, right, in the digital cyber space, even the hackers are innovating, right? And they are also looking at newer excuses to target us and the growth and development that we are seeing. Like we heard about the $115 billion that Hemant mentioned about the size of the Indian, startup space. Now imagine we get stalled by cyber attacks. That number could really come down. Any of those startups, if they get cyber attacked and they lose data, it happened with a major startup, I think, in November last year. No prizes for guessing that one. They were on the verge of being taken over by another larger conglomerate, and their valuation suddenly dipped a bit by that. Again, we don't want any of these things to happen. So you can read more about this particular instance in our blog space, which you mentioned. Again, so we would have thought that with the pandemic, even the hackers would be affected, and they would be taking a break, and they would be going and getting themselves vaccinated or staying locked down, but they didn't. They went after us mercilessly. And one of the sectors that took the brunt of cyber attacks last year was the healthcare sector, right? Where they held a lot of data to ransom. They were getting attacked, healthcare providers, small healthcare providers, where they were catering to 15 people, 20 people, a small sort of a section of a city which they were catering to. They were getting attacked. Their data was held to ransom, and they were asked to pay ransom to release their data. The cost per GB of data, ransom went up. Corporates had to deploy negotiators to actually negotiate with hackers to bring that value down so that they don't end up paying a lot. Again, the days taken to monetize cyber attacks have changed. So a lot of this data, what the takeaway for all of us is that there is constantly a pressure on all of us, not just the pressure from the markets, but also pressure from these hackers as well, for us to constantly innovate and ensure that we stay at least in step with these hackers, right? If not ahead of them. Again, some of the advanced persistent threat clusters that we are monitoring on an everyday basis, these are the sort of players who are behind the critical infrastructure cyber attacks that you're seeing. One of them was behind the attacks you saw on October 24th as well, which is Panta, which operates from an area somewhere near Baluchistan in what is now Pakistan actually. The story here is, again, a lot of these clusters, if you see, they are all collaborating between themselves. They're working together, they're exchanging malware, breach tactics, databases, and what have you, right? That spells trouble for us. By the way, APT groups are the state-sponsored hackers. Sorry, I left that bit back. So these are the very sophisticated hackers, right, who are backed by nation states. They're armed with some sophisticated pieces of malware. You cannot really escape them that easily. Again, some of the countries and the geographical, spread of cyber attacks. Again, looking into what really is going on in the mind of a hacker, right? What is really driving them, right? So they want to monetize their cyber attacks faster. They want to make sure that they earn, right, quickly. So if the chances of them earning are not, the earning quickly is not there, they would rather withdraw, right? Which is a very important point for us who are defending cyberspace, right? COVID-19 has provided a lot of opportunities. People were working from home, they were working from unmonitored environments, there was no attention paid to security. Suddenly things changed overnight, a whole lot of people moved into remote areas and, where there was not adequate security available and all that. A few things, I'll quickly move on. Rising attacks on key sectors. You can see healthcare right on top, right? That validates the point that I was talking about. Again, looking at this entire problem from a cyber resilience standpoint, right? What clearly hits us is that there are a lot of issues that have to be addressed before we even start looking at these hackers in the eye, right? By that I mean that if we have to even start taking our first baby steps towards really addressing this challenge, we need to address all these problems. And of course, Sectrio as a company, we work across the spectrum, across industries, and really address all these problems. Like for instance, you can look at visibility. A lot of people, a lot of entities in spaces like manufacturing, they're running operational technology-based devices which were manufactured by companies which are not even existing now, right? 3 decades back. They are not patched. A lot of them don't even know what these devices are currently doing in their network, right? No visibility. There is no threat intelligence, right? They all think that these are actors who will keep on repeating the same pattern of attacks again and again. Again, a big mistake there. There's no buy-in again from senior management sometimes. Like for a problem, if you look at a problem like climate change, even COVID-19, there are differences of opinion in terms of how we need to address these problems, right? But if you look at cybersecurity, usually everyone agrees that it is a challenge. But even then, we are not ready to take the first steps again. The strategy is out of place because corporates by default are not able to think like hackers, right? You need to really have that mindset to even begin addressing this problem, right? There's no roadmap, etc., etc. So for cyber resilience, these are the key problems that need to be really addressed. We need to work towards addressing them. And the best part of this is there are companies like us who are helping corporations and businesses address this. We also work with startups. At present, we are working with oil and gas companies, telcos, smart cities, large manufacturing entities, even a defense establishment as well, and labs as well, right? And this is how we can really help. Not going into the details, we have solutions. We have the threat intelligence as well, which we offer as free feeds to businesses to use, so that they can detect these malwares and these breaches that are happening, whether there's a geopolitical episode or a match or anything going on, right? Again, we work across the spectrum. We can work across the life cycle of a malware or a cyber attack, and we are not restrained by any technology or any protocols or any standards that you might be using or deploying at your end. We can secure anything and everything for you. So that's where I am. You can always reach out to me in case you want to know more about these attacks and how you can secure yourself, right? Last slide. Thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Prayuk.